And we are recording. Hello, Jackie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for inviting me.
I am really excited. I met you like years ago. You probably won't remember because I know you meet a lot of people. You have a lot of events and you do a lot of different things. And it was about 10 years ago. It was at a psychic event hosted by one of my old teachers, Carolyn Molnar.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing you there, and everybody was like, "Oh, we got to meet this lady. We got to meet this lady." And then finally, because you are kind of like a celebrity out there in the mediumship world. Your face is all over the world with your television show, and we're going to talk all about that. And it's so finally nice to kind of actually have a conversation, like a one-on-one conversation, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and as you were talking about Caroline Molnar, who I love, she's fabulous. Um, I had an image of that room that you were talking about. I am sure there are photographs that have been taken of that event, and I'm sure that you're on one of the photographs.
Come on, really?
I need to go back and take a look. Yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
something to see. That'd be fantastic. It's so
yeah.
serendipitous for sure. So, Jackie, I have to ask you this. Okay, mediumship, a lot of people understand mediumship, but what you do is very, very, very specific. Like you do rescue mediumship. So, how would you describe what a rescue medium does?
Well, I don't rescue mediums.
Okay,
Um,
well,
I, but um, yeah, you know what? Because I am a medium and I do like readings as well. But when you are doing spirit rescue work, you are actually rescuing the spirit that's trapped in wherever they're trapped, a house or location or whatever. You need to go and talk to that spirit and find out why they're there. What are you hanging around for? I call it spirit counseling. It's like a counseling sort of session, and finding out why they're there, why they're hanging out there, and how we can help. So we help them to go over to the light by a series of talks, getting to chat to them to find out what the problem is, just like you would, if somebody has a problem and they go to see, maybe they go to see a doctor,
a
or they go
psychologist.
to a counselor, or a psychologist, and say, I have this problem, this is what's going on in my life now. And sometimes they take those problems with them, and then they don't know how to deal with it. Or sometimes they're just lost, they just don't know where to go. They've gotten there and they're thinking, right, okay, now which way do I go? I'm a little bit in the dark here. So we just point them in the right direction. So that's basically the basics of spirit rescue work. However, you are working blindly with it. So when you're giving a a message to someone, whether you're on a rostrum giving a message to an audience or it's a one-to-one reading with somebody, you get their feedback straight away. Oh yes, okay, yeah, Uncle Joe, oh gosh, yeah, he always wore a hat like that, that sort of feeling. But when you're working with spirit energy, you got nobody to come back and say, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand, that's exactly who it is, because you're working blindly. So that's why we always like to back up whatever we're doing with research after the event. So
Okay.
talking to spirit who tells you his name's William, tells you that maybe he died in a farming accident. Well, then afterwards, let's go and research that and let's find out, which is why, rescue mediums, I think, is so popular, because we've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. We've got an end to the story, where the head of research, Edna Dargy, was amazing, goes out and finds that information that matches up to what we've said, so, which is very important. That's very important to me anyway.
Yeah, I think so too, because it really gives closure, but it gives validity to it as well. Because by the end, because sometimes you kind of question that. Like, I mean, when you're doing mediumship work, when you're giving an audience, you get that feedback, you get that confirmation, but you don't have that confirmation. And by having somebody who researches it and finds it, and I mean, this can be very difficult, the research part of it, because you got to go back years, hundreds of years, maybe even longer, to figure out what happened to this individual. So
Yeah.
how did you get approached like that? Was somebody like one day said, you know what, Jackie, I had this problem in my house. I think there's a spirit in my house. Can you come over and take a look? Like, how did that start for you?
Yeah, that's exactly how it
Is
started.
it really?
You must be psychic. Yeah, no, that it is just how it started. Like, you know, somebody contacted me to say, I've got this problem. I don't know what to do, you know, because I've been doing this a long, long time, you know, what would your advice be? So really, you know, we sort of thrown in at the deep end, as spirit tend to do, throw you in at the deep end. And we were sent to this house. We didn't know why we were going there, and we had to travel a few hours to get there. This lady had rung, she'd gotten this problem and she didn't know what to do about it. All we knew is there was just like a sense in the house of upset and people who would uh, be sort of at loggerheads with each other. There was no reason for that, and there was just a something there. She knew more than she told us, and when I'm saying us, I'm talking about Christine, who was my first partner on Rescue Mediums. So Christine and I went to this house, and when we got there, we had to wait for them. It turned out to be a vicarage, you know, a rectory. So there had been a clergyman. It wasn't now, but it was sort of years prior to that. So it was attached to the church. So when we got there, there was no one available. We had to go into the church. The funny thing was, we always meditate every day, or we meditate when we're about to do a reading or when we're about to go on an investigation, and on that particular day meditated, and we were told that we would see butterflies, and it was February, and we were thinking, nah, no, that's not going to happen. And this is no word of a lie. We went into that church and there were butterflies all flying around the altar.
Wow.
Honestly, it was incredible. So we thought, okay, yeah, we know we're in the right place. They're letting us know we're in the right place. So eventually we goes into the house, and it was a 3-story house. And we were aware of a feeling on the very top floor of there was a lot of, it was like it was a jumble up of feelings. So one minute, yay, really, really happy, and the other, a sort of a frightened feel, and then a very upset feel. Anyway, cut to the chase, because I can talk for England. I'll
That's
go
okay.
on and on.
We got lots of time. This is good. This is all golden. Don't worry. I mean, this is why I want these type of stories. It's fantastic.
Well, you know, it is such a sweet story, really, because we started to communicate with a young boy. I think he was probably about 10 or 11, that sort of age, and he had Down syndrome, and he was ever such a lovely lad, you know, and he came and he was chatting to us. We invited the homeowner to join us, so we sat in a circle, sent the energy round to try and find out why he was there. It was very unusual for, you know, because they're such a happy-go-lucky sort of personalities, you know, and he had that lovely personality. And then another figure came in, and this other figure was a servant, a female, and she told us the story, and she said that this young man had been, that he lived on that top floor, and he was chained at times into a particular area there. He was
Wow.
chained by, you know, the ankle, so that he couldn't go into any other areas of the house.
Wow.
And he was taken out at night time on a lead, like a dog would be, and she was the one that had to take him.
Oh,
And the
wow.
reason was because his father didn't want anyone to know that he had a Down syndrome child, it was just appalling, absolutely
Oh my God.
appalling.
It's
It was
heart-wrenching. Yeah.
heartbreaking, really. And the whole time we were doing this, the lady who owned the house, she was sitting there, she was crying, she was getting really, really upset. We were aware that what we were saying to her, what we were relaying to her, was very upsetting for her. Then all of once I saw like a grandfather figure, and this young boy turned round and he's going like that, and he's waving like this to his grandfather. The grandfather came, took him by the hand, and the lovely nurse who'd looked after him as well, she sort of followed behind, and off they went. And bless him, as he was going through the light, he turned round and he just waved at us, and this huge big beaming smile.
Oh my God.
It was a wonderful thing, a really wonderful experience, to feel that we were part of that and we could help with that. After we'd finished the rescue, and then we did like a cleansing to lift the energy, the homeowner said to us, she said, I want to show you something. She knew the story, and she said that there had been a child there who had got Down syndrome. She showed us a cupboard, and she said, I had the chains taken out of this place, and that's where they were. She didn't know what they were for.
Wow.
But yeah, and she showed us where the chains had been there. So what was interesting about that was, a few days later we went to our local spiritualist church, and the medium on the rostrum came at the very end of the service, and she said, I've got to give you a box of chocolate from this young lady in spirit, who says that, you know, she was a servant, and you know exactly why it's being given to you. So it's like, oh my goodness, wow.
That is so
Yeah.
profound. That is
So
so, I mean, it's
yeah.
so heart-wrenching, but so uplifting at the same time. Like just,
Hmm.
and then the confirmation, because I think
Yeah.
that's always so gold when the work that you do in mediumship is the confirmation, when you get confirmation from spirit and that divine love, and you feel that, because that's so profound, because you're actually helping them go into the light. And it's
Yeah.
so profound. Like, it's such an amazing thing. Like, I was getting goosebumps when you were saying the light showed up, and then he kind of turned around and waved to you and say, hey, thanks a lot, I appreciate that. And then you get
Mm.
confirmation again saying,
Yeah.
thanks, I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah, so yeah, being thrown in at the deep end, we had no idea why we were going there, and then it was word of mouth. Then people got to know about what kind of work we did.
You must have been so busy.
Yeah, I still am. Still am busy. Although, of course, with lockdown, I'm having to do a lot of remote rescue work now. I've done that for a long time anyway, doing remote rescue work. But now, of course, there's no alternative. It has to be remote.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
Mm.
it's so amazing. Now, do you work with specific, angels or, spirit guides to help you? Because, there is some, I wouldn't say danger to it, but again, there is some risk involved when you kind of go into that type of environment. And from my understanding, there's various levels of things could happen during a clearing or a certain event like that.
Hmm.
Maybe can you walk us through a little bit what your process is?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's teamwork. Absolutely teamwork. So whether you've got your human team around you, so in the case of rescue mediums, it's myself and Alison. But when I'm at home or wherever, if I work sometimes in Spain as well, then I have Steve Furlong, who is my partner, my spiritual partner. I've got a Steve who's a husband as well, but the other Steve is my spiritual partner. And so, yeah, we have a rescue team that we put together. So we have that physical team there, but we also have our spiritual team that we work with. And that spirit guides that I work with, I can't imagine not working with them. But the process is always the same, always grounding. We always ground, put that protection around ourselves, open all of the chakras. That's the intent. We want to work in that way, in love and light, to help, whoever we need to help. And sometimes it's helping the homeowner. Obviously it's helping the homeowner if they've got something going on in their home, and we help the spirit to go over, then it helps them as well. But sometimes it's just getting them to be able to understand their own gifts and how to control their own gifts, because maybe they have brought spirit home with them, and that's the thing. It's like you don't want a house full of spirits unless they're in a bottle. Of course, you don't want a house full of spirits there, you know.
Well said, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of different reasons, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It can get quite hair-raising at times. The fact that spirit can't I say spirit can't physically hurt you, and I would actually not be telling the whole truth with that, because I have been thrown against a wall, I've been strangled, I've been pinched, I've been punched, and it's not the physical, but you can feel the force of it. So if spirit want to use their energy, and you're working with those who are of a lower vibration because they haven't gone over for whatever reason, so their spirit energy can be quite strong when they channel that energy in that way. So to push you back, or to feel that physical constriction around your throat, or to
Wow.
be pinched or scratched. So they can, there's a certain amount of things that they can do. However, there's always a reason for them doing that. So it's like, why are you doing that to me? You know, rather than being aggressive back to them, and saying, yeah, yeah, I'll show you, you know, it's like, hey, what are you doing that for? There's no need. You don't have to do that if you want to talk to me. Just tell me what your problem is. You know, let's get it sorted. There's a reason. And you usually find it's because of fear, because they fear something. And then you have to find out what that fear is. What is their Achilles heel, in order to understand what the situation is. So I
Okay.
don't believe there's anything like someone who is evil. Oh, I've got an evil spirit in my house.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
You do, yeah. Or a demonic presence in my house. Well, it's a state of mind. That's what it is. It's a state of mind. So you might feel that something is evil, and it might not be a very nice spirit there, but no one is born evil. No one is born with the intent to hurt someone else. We're born with this, you know, survival. We're born to survive. That's what we do. How we become individuals is very much, you know, how our life pans out and how we deal with things. And so that is the residual that's left over. And
Okay.
that, yeah, and that is what then we have to deal with. But everybody has a bargaining point. I don't care who they are. Everybody has, you know, there's no one that is like nasty all of the time.
Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that again, that's, I guess, just part of it too. I mean, myself, like when I hear those sort of things, I kind of get freaked out. And it's like, because of my own spirituality, my own awareness, I like, oh my God, I would never go into, I had friends of mine, because once people find out that you're psychic and you can do these certain things, it's like, hey, do you want to come over to this place? And it's like, yeah, no. Yeah, I don't want to go there. And this is again during my early phases where I didn't know too much about it, didn't understand my gifts and about protection and grounding and stuff like that. And you talk about bringing home spirits. I didn't know anything about that, but it's so amazing that it's just like a virus. Like you walk along the street and then all of a sudden they cling onto you. You bring them in your home, and then it's like, why do I always feel depressed? Like, what's this suppressed energy? And it wasn't until I got into energy healing that, oh, that's what that is. That's
Yeah.
not mine. And
Yeah.
because, you think it's you, you don't really get that understanding. Like, have you, like in your beginnings, did you have that same type of feeling? Like you bring home spirits, didn't know what was going on?
Um, I don't ever recall doing that, um, because I've grounded. I ground every day. I've had spirits that they just turn up for whatever reason, but I do understand that all of a sudden you feel down, you feel, and that can be that someone has attached themselves to you for a little while. Maybe they've gone, and maybe they've just dumped all of their rubbish onto you. Maybe you're just hanging on to their residual energy and they've moved on. Maybe they've gone on, they've thought, oh, you know, he's not taking any notice of me. I'll go and see someone else. They'll understand me, So somebody who is sort of manic depressive, for example, they don't choose to be, it's just how they are, whether it's a medical problem, that's causing that depression, or a series of events that have caused it, that have, set your mindset in that way. If you go over to spirit and you've still got that same mindset, you don't suddenly sprout wings and become an angel. You know, you've still
Really?
got
You
that.
don't? Ugh.
You still got that stuff you've got to deal with, right? So,
Yeah.
so therefore, some of the spirit entities that I've encountered have had that stuff still going on, that they have to talk through it, and they have to try and understand it and make sense out of the fact that we can't change it. It's already gone, it's already happened, that already happened, so you can't change it now. What you can do is change how you're viewing it and how you're dealing with it. So that's where the counseling comes in, I think, you know. And sometimes if I can't help them in that way, I you know, because they still don't really see it, they're still going round and round in circles, then I have to call in help from the other side and, you know, say, I need to pass this one on to you, because it's, you know, they need a deeper level of healing, really, to be able to understand what's going on before they can move on. So that's another part of the team, of course,
Okay.
in spirit, where you pass on to someone else. So there are teams of doctors and nurses and counselors that are there that are ready to help.
So these are the energies in spirit. So like doctors that have
Yeah,
crossed over, that they're, you
yeah,
know, still helping out humanity,
yeah.
whether they're in the physical or the non-physical, and they're actually on the other side. You know, it's like, hey, we'll help you out and we'll get down there. Now, did you find like there are levels of, I wouldn't say, I don't want to say the words hunting, but are there levels of activity that you find in the house that, you know, some are just very light and just very easy, and then you have this extreme where it's just like really heavy, very dark, and in between? Do you find that
Oh,
a lot?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, and it can be in the same, it can all be in the same property. So you could have some areas of the property that, because you'll see me doing this a lot, I'm measuring through my hand chakras. I tend to do that. Or I'm a very touchy-feely sort of person. So I touch everything. It's like, Jackie, don't touch that. Oh God, too late. She's already done it. You know, so I'm like this. And you can feel the energy in some places that's really, it can be quite light. So you could get a spirit. In fact, this is a great example. Alison and I went to do an investigation at one of the properties. I can't remember which episode it was now on Rescue Mediums, but she said to me, do you know what? She said, I feel like dancing. I said, well, if you feel like dancing, then dance. And so we did like this waltz all around the living room like that, and we were laughing and happy. However, the same man who made her feel like that had made both of us feel very angry, very frustrated. He was annoyed that the kids in the house were playing music that he didn't like. So
Oh,
he wanted this nice, lovely waltz music that he liked to dance to, you know, so he was quite aggressive with the children. So that is a great sort of way of showing the different levels that one spirit can take you to within
wow.
one
Space.
house. Yeah, and he was really quite angry. He wasn't very pleasant to deal with until we got him dancing, and then you know what, he was lovely. You know, he was really lovely because he was remembering being with his wife and, you know, the happier times in his life. So you have to take them to a happy place
Happy place.
sometimes to get them over.
Yeah, and then they kind of see the light. So
Yeah.
what are some of the reasons why spirit gets stuck? Like what are some of the major things that you've seen over the years? Like, I mean, is it mainly fear that they get stuck, or like just unknown, or just they're feeling of incomplete, they haven't completed what they came here to earth, and there's like, I got to stick around to figure this out before I can go? Like what are some of the reasons you have found
Mm.
that spirit still gets stuck?
I haven't found anyone that has said, I've not finished yet. I need, you know, I needed to, I don't want to be here yet. What I have found is spirit who have either not led a very uh, happy life themselves. Maybe they have been quite abusive. And so when they get to the end of their life, and all of a sudden they realize, having gone over, oops, I've got to account for this, and therefore they're frightened. I tell you one that we had, which was a very he tried to strangle me, and he also pinched Alison,
Wow.
and he was quite an aggressive character. In fact, so much so that we were in this basement in this bar, and it was a basement, so basements aren't the cleanest of places,
Yeah, they're kind
and
of creepy as they are.
we were covered in dust and dirt, but it is as it is, and that's where he decided he wanted us to be, because he thought that he could threaten us there, and he overshadowed me, and I do allow the overshadowing, and so does Alison, because sometimes you need to get the story over, and the only way you can do that is by allowing them for their
Merge.
energy to merge, so that you can see it through their eyes, you can feel what's going on,
Oh
so
my
that
gosh.
but it's controlled, it's
Oh
very
yeah.
controlled, even though, but it doesn't look controlled at times, it is. So he came very close and he tried to strangle me. He'd already pinched Alice, and I think he punched her as well, but when we got right down to what his fear was, why was he doing that, he sort of really clammed up, and we had to take him to a happy place. So whilst he was overshadowing me, Alison had said to him, what's your happy place? What do you remember? What can you see? And he saw his mother, and he became a young boy with his dog down by this lovely stream, and his mum was there, and he went laughing and happy to his mum. So we brought her in to help with the rescue. And so he went over with the mindset of being a young boy. But
Wow.
he didn't like women very much in that particular bar, and we found out why. We found out that it used to be a men's only place, so he didn't like it when it became, ladies could go there as well. I think he had other personal issues, but we didn't want to go into all of that. We got him to go over, but his happy place was when he was a child
Yeah.
and seeing his mum. So we got his mum to come in to take him over. So that is his fear was the fact that he hadn't been very nice. He wasn't nice to people. He wasn't nice to his partner. He wasn't nice to women in general. He just didn't really like women being there. So it's interesting that his mum came forward.
Of all people, though, I mean, he hates women, but then usually,
Yeah,
a lot of our issues either
yeah,
deal with our parents, right?
yeah,
So, but his
yeah,
mother, I mean, that's the time. So there has to have been
yeah,
something after his childhood that kind of triggered that type of
yeah,
event where he went into that space. But
yeah.
it's amazing how, overshadowing like that. I mean, that in itself. Do you ever get scared? Do you ever kind of go like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want to be in this place. This is a little too much.
Yeah, at times you say, oh, really? Oh, do we have to do this? I know that Alison has said on a couple of occasions, I can't do this. I really can't do this. And this was early on. I mean, she really was thrown in at the very, very deep end with this work. She hadn't done anything like this before, rescue medium. So when she was chosen to be my partner on the show, we had to train her up quick. So Steve Furlong and I took her on investigations to try and get her up to speed. Obviously, you've got to learn on the job, so to speak, with this kind of work. She did brilliantly, but she did get real scared at times, and I said, you can do it, you can do it. So a couple of times she's wanted to go, no, this is it, I'm done. But it can become, it's very draining. It's very, very draining work,
Oh, I
as you can
believe that.
imagine. Yeah, because you're not only using your own energy, you're trying to control their energy and channel what they're giving to you, like in the case with the guy and his mum. We think his mum had passed away when he was young,
Mm.
and that was it. He'd got this like, oh, why did she leave me, that sort of thing. So it
Oh
could have been a
yeah.
trigger from then. So it's a case of trying to find out why these things are happening, and sometimes the only way is to allow that overshadowing,
Oh, that
to
shadowing.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a profound thing. But the fact that you would allow spirit to do that says something about your character. Because that is, that in itself
What's
is can be.
stupid?
Well, I wouldn't say, well, you brought it
Yeah.
up, but I was like, my brain was like going, yeah. because as I do my own mediumship work too, I mean, I do kind of blend with that, and it's a more happy and joyous kind of a feeling. But again, when you're dealing with mediumship, like and I'm very much an empath, like I feel everything. So having spirit, be like that type of angry spirit to
Mm.
come there and to kind of merge with that and to feel what's going on, so you have a better idea. I mean, I salute you, young lady. I mean, I don't know if I'd be doing that. I mean, I'd be watching you on TV instead of going into the house.
I know one of the shows that we did, we had to deal with a shapeshifter. And I've dealt with shapeshifters before, but this one it had driven the whole family out of the house. They wouldn't live in the house. They had to move out the house
Wow.
because the energy was so bad there. I mean, they'd had a television thrown at them. That's how strong this energy was in the house.
Wow.
It was like a whirlwind of energy. That's the only way I can describe it. And it was residual energy. But the interesting thing about this was we had to slow the energy down. And we had to, because it was literally bouncing off the walls all over everywhere, and you'd see a shadow move, and the camera had picked up this shadow moving as well, that's amazing in itself. And so we had to slow it down to a point of, okay, what happened? Let's find out. Let's go to how you were before. What happened before this became a turmoil? What happened before that? So we had an image of this man who appeared to be a farmer with his wife and his kids and farming this land, uh, really sort of, just getting on with life, quite content and everything else. And then boom, the energy changed again. It became this real aggressive whirlpool of energy. Eventually, we found out that his son had gone out to him in the field, and he'd gotten caught up in one of the traps that he'd set, and the son had died.
Oh,
And
wow.
he blamed himself for that. And then he blamed his wife for allowing the wife allowing the boy to go to him in the field. And it just completely changed this man's energy totally. Yeah, we did find evidence of that. There was evidence to be found afterwards. Edna managed to find the evidence that went with that. But wow, what a story that was. And it wasn't
Crazy.
until we'd tapped into what it was. We had to get his wife and his son who had died, to come for him, to show him that, I'm okay, Dad, I'm fine. It wasn't your fault. It's just one of those things. And they took him over, and that's when his healing started. And yeah.
Then he transitioned over.
Then he transitioned,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, that
That's
that was a difficult one, very difficult, because it was you're working with just energy, and every time he thought about that moment, poof, it was a energy force that could knock you off your feet.
yeah. I mean, that in itself, you hear about these things, and a lot of times it's like, that's horseshit. Like, yeah,
Mm.
come on, really, spirit can do that. Yeah, it can do that. Like, I have firsthand experience. Now, this is kind of interesting. I actually, in my teenage years, I grew up in a funeral home.
Oh
So
wow.
I was around death all the time.
Mm.
And thank God my mediumship abilities didn't open up till later in life, because the energy in that place was so depressing, so toxic for the most
Mm.
part anyways. And it's amazing how things would happen in that. And I never talked about it, but I knew stuff was happening in the place we were living, because it was a funeral home, and because spirit's still lingering around. Now, I never actually seen the spirit, thank God. But I definitely knew that spirit was there, because there was a lot of weird stuff happening all the time, like just a small little things, like a little flicker here, little banging here, little knock here. All of a sudden you get this cold breeze that come by you. And at the time, I didn't really think too much about it. But as I got older and I look back in my life, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe all those spirits were there all the time. But then it makes
Yeah.
sense. Like, hello, you're living in a funeral home of all places.
Yeah. 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 Do you think that it was because it was the spirits connected to those who were deceased, or do you think it was spirit coming in for those who had been deceased?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah, like I mean,
yeah.
it very varied, like depending on what the circumstances of the person who died and what the death was.
Mm,
Because it was because it was such a variety of events that happened where people crossed over. Some were, just somebody had a heart attack and died in the old age, and then some were just absolutely violent stuff, car wrecks and things like
mm.
that, suicides, all the whole gambit of that too as well. So it always varied on different things. Now, do you find yourself when you kind of go out and do your travels, around the world pre-COVID, like you'd be walking into a building or a space and you just kind of like all of a imagine you go, oh, there's spirit there. Like you can just see and feel spirit all the time walking around. What's going on?
I wouldn't say it's all the time because I do switch off,
Okay.
and I have this deal with my main spirit guide, and please don't allow anyone to come through that spiritual doorway, cut my antenna, my psychic antenna off, my my spider senses, I call it, my spider senses, cut them off unless it's absolutely necessary, or I am just being nosy. I want to see what's going on. So if I go into, say, I'm looking into an ancestral home, that I want to go and have a look at, then I would definitely open up because I want to connect with the energy there, and I want to see if there's anyone around. Can you tell me about anything about this house that is not in the guidebooks here?
Yeah.
Because that's just me. That's what I'm like. I do the same in museums. I like to know more than is actually there, because then I can go and see, if I can find anything out about it afterwards.
Now,
But
do you find
with
oh, sorry, go. I mean, I'm just with the museum. Do you find that, there's energy attached to certain items? So like say you're going to like a Egyptian museum, and all the artifacts there, and like you can sense the energy, that's still some energy or spirit attached to those
they can,
artifacts.
yeah, they can be, yeah, because it can be just the residual. Of course, it can be the residual energy, but it could be the caretaker of as well, so somebody's looking after a particular piece, or it just could be that there is an attachment to that. I did an investigation here where I live. A lady had been having problems in a garden, well, not just in a garden but in the house, but the garden in particular had a really strange feel to it, and the house next door and the one next door to that also, they all got together, had a little natter, and they said, oh, there's something really odd about this. So I went to take a look and encountered a Roman soldier who told me that there was, that had been a burial site at one point. So I contacted a local historian to see, and he said, oh, yes, yes. He said, yeah, there used to be there used to be a Roman fort near here, and he said there was a burial site there. He said, in fact, there were 2 urns found, and they're now in the Grosvenor Museum in Chester. So I went,
Wow.
oh, wow. Okay. So I had to make a pact with this Roman soldier that there was like a little designated area to him where the homeowners would be respectful of that area, and that they would plant something nice in honor of, those that had passed before. And yeah, so he's still looking after the area, even
That's
though the
fantastic.
remains are not there. But yeah, he's the guardian of that area.
Now, do you
Mm,
find there's a difference too as well with working with spirits and stuff like that? I've heard sometimes that people get it confused that there might be like, the difference between having fairies, elementals, gnomes, and elves, doing mischief and doing little things versus spirit. Like, how do you determine the difference between the two, or the different types of energies that may be kind of playing around with you, so to
yeah.
say?
Yeah, well, because I know I know the difference. um, so I've seen fairies twice in my life. I saw them once when I was a child, and I saw them once as a grown up. And the ones I saw as a child were actually quite big. They were about this big, and they weren't particularly very. They didn't look like Tinkerbell. They didn't look anything like Tinkerbell, and they were very industrious. And the wings only came out when they needed to fly. So that was interesting to me because I didn't notice they'd got wings until they went to jump out of the window, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to fall. They didn't. And then the ones that I saw as an adult, they were tiny little things, but they were quite annoyed the fact that I was there. So
Oh,
it was
really?
like, yeah, this is like, oh, we're looking after this. You don't need to be here. This is our little domain here. You don't need to be there. I've got the bottom of my garden is a fairy garden. I have to say, I've got little toadstools and everything there in the bottom of the garden. It is a fairy garden. And so I'm very aware of the elementals. I have never come across a gnome, I don't believe, other than the garden statue gnomes, but I believe that there are so many things in this world that we, we're not privy to seeing, but they are there. I do respect those different elements.
Yeah.
But with spirit energy, I just know. It's the knowing, isn't it? When I just know. See, I don't see spirit.
So you're claircognizant?
Well, it depends what I'm doing.
Okay.
When I'm working with Spirit Rescue, I can see a physical form because the vibrations are heavier vibrations, so I can see that there. Mostly it's here that I see. When I'm working doing readings or whatever, I see an energy. I work with a personality and I can see an energy form, so I may see lights, colors, lights, a haze as well, different in a light and shade. All of a sudden I'm aware of just a very, very slight change in the energy. But I can sense all the time. So you're using all of your senses, when you work clairvoyantly anyway, aren't you? But it depends how I'm working as to what are the senses that I use and how I perceive spirit. But normally in a reading, I don't see them there. I'm just aware of that personality. So if somebody had great sense of humor when they were alive, they've still got that great sense of humor now.
Yeah, I've heard this quote. It's like, they talk about, if a person crosses over, they still have the same personality as they cross over. So if he was an idiot in this lifetime, he's an idiot on the other side too, as well. Yeah, for them very much. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's interesting how. Now, do you find that, depending on the individual and the personality, that either your clairvoyance, your claircognizance would kind of turn on, turn off? One would be more stronger than the other, depending on the spirit itself?
Yeah. Because everybody has got a different personality. Everybody's different, and you might speak to one person in one way, then you go and speak to somebody else, you talk to them completely different, and so it's the same with spirit energy. You talk to them or communicate with them in a completely different way depending on how they're communicating with you. Okay. So if someone comes towards me with an aggressive energy with spirit rescue or investigation work, then I don't go back to them with that same energy. I try to either, well, let's shift it, let's talk about something else, or let's soften it. Let's see, try to soften the energy a little bit, be complimentary or whatever, like, oh, you've got a nice perfume today or whatever, just try to be complimentary to them in some way that lets them know that they can trust you, because it's all about trust. It has to be about trust.
That's so important. It's amazing, those sort of things. So are there any tips and tricks that people can have? Like if they're, because the great thing about a podcast, it's worldwide. And there's people over in New Zealand and Australia and stuff like that. And I even have listeners in Singapore, which still blows me away. If they're feeling like there's a spirit there, and unfortunately you can't travel to Singapore at this time to help them out, is there something that they can do in their home or something like that to maybe ease it or maybe kind of help themselves?
Yeah. And I do get a lot of people asking that question. By the way, Rescue Mediums just go out in Singapore. It's dubbed, but it goes out in Singapore.
That's brilliant. I love it.
So yeah, I always advise grounding, you know. So I would teach somebody how to ground and how to put that layer of protection around themselves, not just for spirit, but to preserve your own energy levels, to get you in control of your own gift, to, you know, because we've all got this ability to be able to communicate. And then, you know, lighten the place up, bring something, you know, like flowers in, you know, freshly cut flowers. So yellow flowers are really good for lifting the energy.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use you know, a sage wand, a
Smudging, yeah.
smudge stick. Yeah, that of course is a great cleanser. Crystals are fantastic as
Yep.
well for absorbing negative energy, then putting out positive energy. It's lifting the vibrations in order to find out what's happening. Is it residual energy, or is there a spirit entity there? And if there is a spirit entity there, what do they want? So, you know, talk to them just like you would, you know, if a stranger came into your house, you'd say, oh, what are you doing here? What do you want?
I don't know
You
if
know.
I'd be that polite though. I'd
But,
be
well,
like,
yeah.
who's that? All right,
Yeah,
you.
but it's like you've got to be able to say to them, look, this is my space. You know, if you once lived here, there is a nicer place there. Get them to think of something nice. Get them to think of someone who's in spirit that they had a fantastic time with, that they would really love to connect back with. And then as soon as they feel that, 9 times out of 10, their energy will shift. The thought, of course, because the thought is there, will go straight to that person and they'll get the help, you know. So I could go into, like, you know, creating a doorway that you're going to open and you're going to guide them through. You know, you're going to allow the light to come in to the room, and then make sure you close it after, put sticky tape around it so you've got no one coming through, that it's just for that purpose.
Just for that person.
Yeah, the other thing I do is remote rescue. So I will send and I've had quite a lot of success with this all over the world. It doesn't work every time, but it can work. So I send a photograph of this building that I'm in now, of our front door, because we have a manned portal here, okay, that is there for remote rescue work.
Specifically
So
for that.
exactly for that, yeah. So the information that we send it is, you know, print off this photograph of Feather's front door, put it somewhere where you've got a lot of things going on. You know, you feel that this is where that spirit energy is, in that room. So put it there. And every time you feel a connection with that spirit energy, or they're doing something, they're switching lights on and off, or they're moving something, say to them, go to Feather's front door. Don't say go to Jackie, because I don't want them at my house. Just say go to Feather's front door, and picture that front door there. And what happens is, as soon as they make that connection, because if they're communicating with you, they'll know what you're saying. As soon as they make that connection, we have an amazing spirit helper. Well, we have 2 actually, but one main one. Her name's Mavis, and unfortunately she has a dreadful smell with her. It doesn't last long, and I have to explain to people in advance, she smells like cat pee, and I have to apologize to people in advance. But you know what, it's something that really works, because it's a smell that's unmistakable.
Yeah,
And
that's a very strong smell.
it doesn't linger, you know. It's just that as soon as they make that connection there, Mavis is there straight away, and she brings them straight here. And 9 times out of 10, she can get them to go straight through the portal. However, if there is still a problem, they wait in my waiting room, and I speak to them, or Steve speaks to them to find out, hey, what's going on? What's the problem? Then eventually we get them to go through. Once they're through, once they're in Feathers, they can't go back to where they've come from. So I use that in a lot of cases, and sometimes they have to put pictures in more than one room, and sometimes it takes a little bit of, you know, I need to get on Zoom with them, and we need to do a remote thing like that. I've done that with a few different people as well. That can that can help. But it's all intent, of
Yeah,
course. You
of
know,
course.
thoughts are
Yeah.
living things. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing. I mean, that's so interesting. Cat pee.
I know.
Yeah, like you're sitting in your house and go, why do I smell urine? Like, what's that
Yeah,
really, really strong smell? Like you'd be going,
yeah,
oh yeah, that's right. Jackie told me that. Yeah, Mavis is here. We got to, she's ushering
exactly.
spirit. Thanks, Mavis. So now, somehow my brain, I'm going to be going, I'm going to be walking around my apartment looking, smelling, cat pee, and I have no
Cat
cat.
pee.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't have no cat. And it's like, Mavis. All right. I have no spirits or Mavis, but thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So Jackie, we're almost out of time here.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. I am very happy that you had the chance to come on the show and talk to a lot of people about this. I know it's a fascinating subject. A lot of people are interested in the work you do, and obviously because your show has been so popular over the years. I guess we're just gonna have to wait for other seasons, or is that coming up in the pipeline after this whole COVID thing gets out of the way?
We would love to. It's down to the broadcaster. It's not down to us, really. We're all ready and waiting. Alison and I have both got our Nimbus 2000s waiting to get going, you know. So it's down to the broadcasters to say, yeah, we're going to fund this. Well, no one's got any money at the moment. So we
Yeah,
put it out to the universe. We're all ready. Just let us know and we'll be there.
we're ready to
So
go.
we've got other stuff in the pipeline. I'm doing stuff here. I've done a lot of stuff over Zoom, obviously. There, so I've got things like the psychic box. I'm doing a lot for veryparanormal.com. If it's the psychic boxes for that, we've got the psychic diaries, rescue mediums behind the scenes. That's all available on veryparanormal.com as well. There's some great tutorials on there as well. Lots of stuff going on there. But yeah, physical stuff when everything's lifted, yeah, we're hoping that we can get going with stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. Yeah, it's always a great
Yeah.
show, and I know, it's over the years, it's just been so popular, and it's interesting. It's just to see how much people are so interested in mediumship, and what you guys do. It's fantastic. So, where can they find you, Jackie? If people are looking for you on the World Wide Web, where can they find you?
Yep, they can find me www.jackiedennison.com. So, or Feathers Academy, just type in Feathers Academy. Rescue Mediums, you'll get hold of me, or veryparanormal.com as well. On Facebook, I'm a bit here, there, and everywhere, really.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And I'll have all the information in the description below, in the description on the video and the audio too as well. With
Thank
that
you.
being said, Jackie, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show all the way from the UK.
Yes.
It's like my second home. I had so much, prior to COVID, I really enjoyed being over there. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. So that being said, Jackie, I'm just going to close off the show. This has been the Metaphysical Mentor podcast with Michael Philpott. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye for now.